down over Germany and captured and served 22 months as a POW. When he returned to the United States in 1945, he joined Air Force Reserves, and shortly after that he was activated and sent to Korea. And good timing, Doc. He married Helen, a Lakewood girl he met on a blind date on October 7th, 1950. He was honorably discharged with a total of 26 years, 6 months of military service. And, you know, there are vets and there are vets, but Doc was a vet of 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. After retiring from the Air Force, Doc devoted most of his time to volunteering. He served as a Boy Scout leader for many years and was a litterless Lakewood board and volunteered at the Lakewood Senior Center. He's a member of the Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame, Lakewood School Staff Hall of Fame, and served as the Grand Marshal of the Hometown Hero Parade. He's also a veteran of the Lakewood school system. I give you Doc Unger.
I didn't do it. That's fine. I don't know whether we're talking about the same person or not, but I'm really delightful to be here. And Mayor Fitzgerald and all of the honored guests, this is an opportunity that very few people have, and I relish in it. At one of our veteran meetings while planning this event, I showed those attending a Cleveland Plain picture of me and then Boy Scout Christopher Sales placing small American flags around this same memorial. Those flags were left over from the Fly Your Pride campaign sponsored by the Office on Aging. It was on Veterans Day, and that was the only ceremony taking place here. That was probably 1983. Since then, and thanks largely due to deceased veteran Joe Mazzarella, the city improved the flagpole situation and made what we then called Flag Island. There were others involved, to be sure, but Joe was the driving force. The Veterans Memorial has most recently been upgraded for a better and larger seating arrangement and offers a better overall showing of our wonderful memorial. For this, we thank the City of Lakewood, the Veterans Committee, and you citizens who helped pay for it. In 1992, I had the occasion to be in a ceremony here honoring Lakewood's former prisoners of war in the placing of a prisoner of war remembrance on the cannon. You can't see the cannon, but it is over behind me. The cannon is still here, and so is that remembrance. At that time, there were 10 former prisoners of war living in Lakewood. Now there are just 2, myself and Chester Rump, Lakewood High School class of 1941. 3 girls from that same 1941 graduating class married POWs. My wife was one of them. I always say that I married a Lakewood girl, and that's why I live in Lakewood. It may have been following that ceremony that Richard Currier, a Lakewood POW, and myself were talking, and his eyes were scanning the names on the monument from World War II. His eyes came to tears, and he choked up saying, "I didn't realize that I knew so many of those listed." Well, so much for that. We're here today to pay tribute to the men and women from all wars who have given up their lives and sacrifice to our great country, the United States of America. It's our way of saying thanks. The ceremony, the band, the chorus, vocalists, color guards, our city leaders, and all of us. You ever get stuck between two pages here? You may not know that following my military career, I was an elementary school teacher at Great Garfield Elementary School, right here in Lakewood. I was gung-ho for patriotism, and for a long number of years following my retirement, I went back to Garfield School and planned and helped carry out patriotic programs. A few years ago, I received a letter from a former student, and in that letter, he wanted to tell me that on November 11th, at 11 minutes after 11, he stood at attention and saluted. Now, he said the strange part about that was that he was in the shower at the time. It was indeed 11 minutes after 11 on November 11th, the act of surrender of World War I took place. Well, what is Veterans Day besides today? Boy, and it is beautiful. Just what does it really stand for? Perhaps it started on November 11th, 1921. I don't have difficulty remembering that year because that's the year I was born. It was in that year that an unknown soldier from World War I was buried in the Arlington National Cemetery in the then called Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, located along the Potomac River near our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. It became the focal point for remembering American veterans. The ceremony on the 11th hour, 11th day, and the 11th month paralleled similar ceremonies on this exact date and time in earlier years in England's Westminster Abbey and in France's Arc de Triomphe. You see, World War I ended on November 11th, 1918, 11th hour, 11th day, and 11th month. Back then, it was called Armistice Day. It didn't become officially Armistice Day until a congressional resolution in 1926. And then in 1938, Congress declared Armistice Day to be a national holiday. World War I was to have been the war to end all wars, but only a few years after the Armistice Day holiday was established, war broke out in Europe. And the United States ended up, and I want you to listen to these, with 16.5 million people in military service, of which 400,000 in service died in service to their country. Still, November 11th continued to be observed as Armistice Day until 1954. It was then following the Korean War that Congress now wanted to also recognize the veterans from World War II and Korea, and requested this day to honor all who had served in America's wars. President Eisenhower signed the bill proclaiming November 11th now as Veterans Day. It still remained a national holiday. Since then, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, and isolated involvements in the world have added to our need to remember, as does the terrorist attack on September 11th and our subsequent ongoing retaliation in Iran and Afghanistan. On Memorial Day in 1958, two more unidentified American war dead were brought from overseas and interred in the plaza beside the unknown soldier of World War I. One was killed in World War II, the other in the Korean War. Then in 1973, still another law was passed providing for the internment of an unknown American from the Vietnam War, but none was found for several years. This brings to my mind the POW MIA issue. Then in 1984, an unknown serviceman from that conflict was located and was placed alongside the others. To honor these men and women, symbolic of all Americans who gave their lives in all wars, an Army Guard, the 3rd U.S. Infantry, nicknamed the Old Guard, keeps a 24-hour day and night vigil. A short-lived law passed in 1968 changed the national commemoration of Veterans Day to the 4th day in October. It soon became apparent, however, that November 11th was the date of significant importance to the Americans. Therefore, in 1978, Congress returned the observance to this traditional date today, November 11th. I was privileged to attend Veterans Day ceremonies in Arlington Cemetery in 1998. It was in this amphitheater, built around the Tomb of the Unknowns, the then National Commander of the American Ex-Prisoner of War and the President of the United States standing side by side and saluting our flag. This during the playing of the national anthem. The electricity, the solitude, the emotion for me is impossible to adequately describe. One just had to be there. This amphitheater full of people like you and me, our nation's president and most of his cabinet, 2 military bands, speeches, and a uniformed chorus, all attesting to the importance of the occasion. Now today, here at Lakewood's Veterans Memorial, perhaps on a smaller scale, but every bit as important, we too honor our nation's veterans, the fallen, the missing in action, the injured, those interred locally and around the United States in national cemeteries, and national cemeteries in countries abroad. These are the veterans that first come to mind on this day of remembrance. But I wish to remind you that every man and woman who ever wore or wears today the uniform of this great country of ours, no matter where or how they served, has been a defender of our nation's freedoms, and they too are honored today. And I thank you.